Why is there no innovation happening in the industry? So I'm going to let you guys in on one of my pet peeves, and that's actually when I hear that statement or some variation of that statement about, why is there no innovation? And I hear this almost every day. Truth is, innovation is one of those buzzwords. It's constantly in the business lexicon. It's, regardless of how you communicate or where you communicate in the business world, you hear that term all the time. And though we hear that term constantly, we probably use that term constantly, I argue that it's misunderstood. It's not used appropriately a lot of times because most people are applying it in a very binary perspective. They say, something is innovative or not, but I think that's an oversimplification. I think that there's a lot of different forms of innovation. I don't think that people maybe understand the nuances of innovation and that innovation is actually all around us. And I'm going to be looking at this topic through functional CPG, consumer packaged goods, the categories that I normally do a lot of work in. It's going to probably skew a little bit through the lens of the supplement industry, and that's because it is probably one of the better lenses to look at this subject through. But this could be applied to any consumer packaged goods or fast-moving consumer goods category. And in this video, I'm going to be explaining some of those different types of innovation, also giving you guys some examples just so you can draw some comparisons to. But take a step back, walk a little bit backwards here, and just kind of explain in the sense of business word innovation and why innovation sometimes is not the same thing as like creating or inventing something. For an innovation to be successful, it has to kind of meet two criterias over time. That is, one, like the idea, whatever that innovative idea is, it has to be useful in business and it has to be able to be replicated over time at a cost-effective manner. And it must resolve a consumer's want. And that consumer must want it at the price point in which the business can offer that. So there's a bunch of different kind of elements that go into a successful innovation, what we would consider an actual commercialized innovation. There's a ton of different ideas, inventors, people coming up with crazy ideas all the time. A lot of times when it gets down to the execution part, the commercialization part of it, it just doesn't work because of a variety of different external or internal factors that get into play. And innovation has kind of taken on a very different approach in 2019 in this dynamically changing, fragmented, fast-paced, low barrier of entry type of environment, this market that we're in right now. Innovation is very different than kind of how it used to be. And I've made this comment a few times on some of my videos, but product alone, like having a great product, having an innovative product is not necessarily going to be what makes you win in the market today. It's not going to be your deciding factor. There needs to be so many other things within the sequence. Having a great product, having an innovative product in the sense outside of maybe some of the more drastic definitions of innovation, that in itself is not going to make you successful. You need to understand all the different market factors that are now at play. But we're going to be focusing this video on just innovation, definitions of innovation, just some examples. And soon I'll maybe cover in another video just the idea that a great product alone is not going to define success in the market today. So what are the types of innovation? And I kind of order these in what you see most often first, and then it'll kind of get to the point where you don't see them as often. The most common form, and one that's probably the most misunderstood and undefined from most people, they don't consider this innovation, and that is incremental innovation. And this is by utilizing an existing product and making some updates, some improvements, something that adds value to the consumer. And though a lot of people don't define incremental innovation as innovation because that's not the definition they have in their head, I believe it's one of the most important in kind of day-to-day running of functional CPG business in today's market. Today, consumers have very shortened attention spans, product life cycles, brand life cycles are shortening by the day. And to keep things and extend things a little bit longer, you have to kind of increase your ability to be at the top of the pile, have this idea of like increased mind share, not just increased market share. And incremental innovations give you that ability to have a continuous conversation, always have something new to be talking about, keep the attention on your brand. And examples that you see in functional CPG is just a ton of different flavors coming out all the time, maybe seasonal flavors coming out. Sometimes, maybe a little bit stronger or new formulas or something that's a little bit, something that takes the same product, just kind of manipulate it and add maybe a new feature or something that's just tiny bit different, a few degrees different, a few degrees improved from the original output. So this is what you see day in and day out. So though it might not be some of the other definitions, some of the more increasingly complex forms of innovation, it is one that surrounds us on a day-to-day basis. Winning brands are utilizing it in a very effective manner. You're seeing a ton of incremental innovations to try to cut through the noise, to make sure the conversation and the attention is kind of continuously on them. Next kind of form of innovation is breakaway innovation. And a breakaway innovation tries to escape its current category and kind of move into an ancillary category. Products are generally like a part of a category based on some elements of design or distribution or promotion, pricing, functionality, all these different elements. Good example that you see today is this idea of like performance energy drinks or like pre-workout energy drinks. This is kind of taking normally a kind of a niche product, even though it's a popular product in sports nutrition, but it's something that definitely is not it's definitely not a thing that like all Americans or all consumers take. Usually it's in a powder form and it kind of ramps you up before a workout. It's actually pretty new in itself, a pretty new category within the supplement industry or the functional CPG industry. But products like Bang or C4 carbonated, or even maybe to the extent of like Celsius, they took product elements from the nutritional supplement sports nutrition world and applied it to energy drinks, beverages, and kind of spun it in a way that people now drink a Bang before their workout. And this is just a different consumption behavior. It's a different way to approach a very similar product. And again, you don't see this all that often. I mean, this is sometimes like an internal positioning type of an innovation. This is, thinking outside the box within the framework of products that you kind of already have available to you or have the ability to create. This is not really moving into the next one I'm going to be talking about, like disruptive, but it does provide the CPG brand to extend their brand, their products a little bit longer by associating with different categories. Now, I just mentioned kind of the next form of innovation, and that is disruptive innovation. And this is starting to get into the definitions of what most people think about when they have this binary innovation or not type of a mentality. Disruptive innovation involves launching a new product, a new technology, process within an existing market. This usually takes a little bit of time to get going. You usually have, some of this you see on the bleeding edge, or you see a few brands maybe working on it, or see them being, championing it in the market. But it takes a few years for it to kind of start hitting critical mass, start getting some growth, start getting some sales velocity in some different channels. And at that time, usually have people trying to catch up. This is when brands start moving into a trend a lot quicker. A really good example probably right now is kind of towards maybe keto products. Keto products kind of started in the early 2010s. You had a lot of people bleeding edge talking about keto, kind of being advocates of the keto lifestyle. And you saw some early movements, some people that really got in early and really were able to build up a fragmentation of the market. You still had similar buyers. You weren't really positioning this as outside of the current category, the current market, but you were fragmenting it and you were creating kind of your own disruptive type of innovation within that category. And this is what you're seeing a lot with like the fragmentation that's happening in sports nutrition, in supplements. I use the example of keto just because I think that's kind of the biggest one that you're seeing right now. You're seeing focused products, ones that are around certain propositions, certain lifestyles, and with today's targeting and today's kind of tribal ways with their ability to find those on social media, you tend to be able to create small fragmented markets within a much bigger market. And then probably what most people consider innovation is actually what they call radical innovation. And this is honestly the rarest type of innovation. You don't see this very often, especially in today's world where there's so much information, there's so much creation that's happening on a day-to-day basis. There's very few and far between do you see something just radically innovate or just create a totally different idea of something. This is you creating your own market. This is you going out on a limb for what you believe the future is going to look like. And this usually takes a good amount of time. It takes a lot more time than a disruptive innovation. This could take upwards sometimes of a decade. Usually solving big problems, you are trying to create something within a very complex scenario where you need a lot of things to fall in line together. The best example that I could use for radical innovation is this idea of like personalized nutrition that we are just starting to see now. You have people that are getting into personalized nutrition. You kind of have personalized nutrition 1.0. It's just very simple kind of databases, very simple input forms that you get some type of output from a database that is, so-called personalized to you, even though it's just a few different SKU sets that are a little bit different based on the answers that you give. But to really get personalized nutrition to the point of being what we all want it to be, this radical innovation, it needs to be able to pull from a continuous data source. You need to be able to mine big data to provide us with a better life. So wearables or blood tests or the ability to synchronize your diet to your DNA to all the variables that are happening around you on a day-to-day basis to make sure that you are optimized to be this superhuman every day. That's this radical innovation. That is what a lot of these people that are actually personalized nutrition companies, huge tech startups that have hundreds of millions of dollars behind them in venture funds. This is what they're trying to answer. That has to do with food, has to do with supplements, has to do with all the health type of things that we're talking about. There's a ton of different interlinkages that start to compound in terms of making this happen. You also have answers with privacy concerns or regulatory concerns, supply chain, technology, the ability to have all that in real time to actually make meaningful decisions and have the proof be out there that this is something that is actually going to help us and not be the demise of us as humans. These are the type of things that are radical innovations. So as you can see by my definition of one of them, this is not something that happens every day. This is not, a lot of times entrepreneurs, especially consumer packaged goods, functional CPG, whatever it is, they're not really trying to tackle a problem this big. They're not trying to innovate at that level. So if your definition is that, yeah, there's no innovation that's happening in the industry. There's not a lot of that that's happening because that's not a common undertaking of any person. Yes, technically, if your definition is radical innovation or nothing, then there's not a lot of innovation that's happening in the industry. Now, if you look at innovation from tons of different perspectives and different levels, like I said at the beginning of the video, there's a ton of incremental stuff that's happening on a day-to-day basis, especially in functional CPG where the barriers of entry are so low. You have constant innovations that are happening, even though it's just kind of small steps here and there that are kind of happening. You are seeing it on a day-to-day basis. You might be lulled to sleep by just how quick things move and how much you get thrown innovations on a day-to-day basis, but it's happening. So wanted to kind of explain a little bit more around definitions of innovation, kind of clear up maybe some misconceptions that are out there, hopefully some knowledge to understand this topic a little bit differently. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to help support me, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button on this video. If this is the first time you've been introduced to my videos, would love for you guys to be a part of my community by subscribing to my channel. I upload several videos just like this weekly, and if you guys want to connect further outside of this platform, I do include all of my social media links down below. I just want to thank you guys again for your time. Hopefully I gave you some value in return, and we'll see you guys on the next video.